Hello, good people. Welcome to our show. Hello, bad people. Welcome to our show. Hello, guys. Welcome. Today we are going to discuss about LinkedIn. I love this social media. I get a lot of great results on LinkedIn, and I switch my attention from most platforms to LinkedIn. And I disagree with someone who can say you need to be everywhere. If you have resources, you can. If you have a great team, you can. But if you pay all resources and attention to one social media, you can get much better results. I'm so excited to discuss a lot more about LinkedIn with Jasmine J. Alec. How are you?
How's it going, man? Thank you for the invite, by the way. And that was a great intro about LinkedIn. I feel the same way, pretty much. Nobody should be on all the platforms. Like, that's what I always say. Pick one, at least one, or one at a time, and then see if it makes sense to scale. So I like that intro. I really do.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I researched this topic, and because I failed when I was, I tried to cover all social media platforms. I did it in 2020. I promoted my content on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, even Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. But I failed to get results, and I became like jack of all trades, master of none. I learned a lot from Gary Vee. He's great to cover all social media platforms, but he started on Twitter to tweet content for 7 years, and he shared his success because he spent like all night in Twitter for 7 years. I learned about Mr. Beast. He started on YouTube. He ignored other social medias. Okay, today he can create content on TikTok, on other social media, on Instagram, but all of them got great success on one social media. For example, Charlie D'Amelio, she got great success on TikTok. And when she came to Gary Vee to ask for advice what to do when she got 4 million followers on TikTok, and he replied to her, double your energy on TikTok. So if you can, why you need to be everywhere? Today, of course, Charlie D'Amelio creates content on Instagram, on YouTube, because she has a team. If you have resources, why not? You can. But in the beginning, if you start from scratch, if you are not the best in the trade, you need to ignore other social media. Jasmine, before you start, just tell more about yourself, experience, background, and let us know why you choose LinkedIn.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. Just a quick note about myself, who I am, what I do, why I do it. I'm a copywriter. I'm a brand strategist. As of the last 2 years, I'm a LinkedIn creator. I love LinkedIn. Use it every day. And my background is really in writing and brand strategy. I work with some really cool brands around the world. But before all of that, I was a teacher, an English teacher. I've traveled the world teaching, and B, I was a musician. I was a rapper. So in both of those worlds, language, words, writing, communication, if you will, were key. And when I moved to writing or the world of online writing, it didn't feel like I was actually moving to anything. It just felt like I was reaching the next stage of it. So the most recent stage, I'm fairly certain I'm going to develop and pivot out of this and just scale out into something new over the years. But for now, it's writing online, particularly LinkedIn, and helping people grow their brands, whether it's personal brands or whether it's company brands on LinkedIn specifically and beyond. Just because I do have that experience, a ton of experience outside of LinkedIn as well. So yeah, um, I enjoy working with folks. I enjoy training folks. I enjoy training teams. And I enjoy traveling the world doing very much the same. And if I can't, I'll do it online like this. I'll do it virtually. And if I'm not doing anything, best believe I'll be on LinkedIn and posting something valuable, something educational, inspirational, motivational, whatever it is. As long as it moves the needle for someone, I'm doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, I like your experience. I like that you enjoy. I think if you don't enjoy, it's better to leave it and find something else. I often see it. According to data, 70% of people hate their jobs. It's a lot. Guys,
Yeah.
if you hate your job, leave it. You will never regret. You have one life. You don't need to
It's
regret.
actually 70%. Like that's the official stat.
Yeah, according to some data can share like 50%, some 70%. Yeah, yeah. I think some people are unhappy, someone can hate. So I think
I'm not surprised. I'm just like, that's a lot. Like,
a
I
lot, yeah.
I see it around me, right? We've all seen
Mhm.
it over years, wherever you worked, even if at a small boutique company, at a school, at a government agency or whatever, or if you're a solopreneur, you'll see it. Like, not everyone's happy with their jobs,
Yeah.
nor will they probably ever be, just because people are stuck in the same loop. They don't want to learn new skills. They don't want to learn new things. They don't want to try, doing the things that work.
Mhm.
Instead, they'll just chase a hopeless dream, doing the things that aren't working, and then they'll try to figure it out, or they'll just blame the system, blame the algorithm, whatever. But yeah, I feel it. I feel it. 70% is sky high, but I can see it. It's definitely real.
Yeah. Can you advise these people, someone who can listen this podcast, what to do? For example, let me share a short story about my friend. He has family, 3 kids. He needs to feed them, to pay bills, but he hates his job. And when I told him, you need to find something else, and he replied to me, I need to pay my bills. I need to take care about my family. If I leave this job, what I can do? I have no money to go ahead. I know it's some part of excuses. I think everyone has struggles, but tell for these people who have such experience how you enjoy your process, how you love your job, and tell others how they can do.
Well, my first, I wrote about this the other day. By the way, it's a loaded question that where I could give like multiple pieces of advice, but the main advice I always give people is invest time in building your personal brand. Now, that by itself sounds super generic. It sounds like something we've heard before, but what it's really about, and I wrote about this like a couple of weeks ago in one of my LinkedIn posts. It's really about taking control of your future. The thing I dislike the most about the job market, the way it's set up, for people who don't necessarily have, a name that's known, or people who don't necessarily have a really good network, like they don't know a whole lot of people outside the industry, in the industry, around the world, in their country, out of their country. Basically, they don't have a strong brand or presence online. The problem then is, if you lose this job, the current job, whether or not you hate it or love it, that's besides the point. But if you lose it, what's your next step? If you lose that job, what's your next step? The reality is, the next step is you just do everything you can to search and find another job ASAP. So you're going to do whatever it takes, given the time you have in your day, to find a new job. But is that really the reality everyone wants for themselves? Like, even if you get that new job, we see it all the time with these layoffs around the world. There's like 500 people have been laid off from insert company name. You see these headlines. Then 5,000, you know, people have been laid off from insert company name. Like, it's just a bunch of companies at this point around the world. But you see it happening at a small scale, even. People are losing their jobs or they're being laid off, and then they fall into the same job search cycle. And I've had this conversation with some of my best friends. I ask them, how do you use LinkedIn? And then they look at me like, what kind of a question is that? And I tell them, how do you use LinkedIn? And they tell me, well, I use it to apply for jobs, and then I don't. Like, that's literally it. They use LinkedIn to search for a job, and as soon as they have a job, they no longer use LinkedIn. They forget about it. And then, and there's always an opportunity, a chance, a possibility for you to lose that job 1 year later, 5 years later, it doesn't even matter. What do they do again? They go back to LinkedIn and they search for a new job. Circle of doom. It's a cycle of doom, and it never ends. But then I ask them, what if you never even had to look for a new job? Because the reality is, they're probably just going to find a job that's exactly the same as the last one, or worse, rarely better, rarely better. So I ask them, like, why do you keep doing that to yourself? You're just stuck in the same loop. Don't you know? And they're like, are you criticizing me? Are you telling me something I don't already know? And I'm like, no, I'm not criticizing. I'm asking a legit question. Like, why do we as people do this to ourselves? Because all that time in between, like while you had a job, you could have used that time to post something online, to spread your voice around the world, to meet people around the world, meaning expand your professional network and or position yourself as an authority in the job, in the niche, in the particular problem area that you're actually experienced in. You can position yourself as the go-to person for that thing you're actually good at. And then they're looking at me like, you're kind of right, but I don't know how to start. And then I'm like, let me give you a masterclass. And then I go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 17, whatever. My gripe with job searches and people being laid off is the fact that I believe, we still do not understand the vitality, the importance of having an actual strong personal brand. I always say everyone has a personal brand, but not everyone knows they have one. And that is something that I'm willing to repeat for the audience. Everyone has a personal brand, but not everyone knows they have one. Here's what that means. If you lose your job, are you going to search for it? Or are you going to be met with 10, 20, 30 offers the very next day? That's what a strong personal brand does. Are you going to get hit with a layoff? Or do you already have your next opportunity waiting? Are you going to get stuck in the same job for years with no chance of advancing and moving up the ladder? Or are you going to get chased by other companies and other brands and other people while you're still at that job? And so on and so forth. The list goes on. The list of benefits for having a personal brand, for actually investing time and effort into building online, specifically on LinkedIn, because it's the easiest platform of them all for building a personal brand and actually connecting with real business people and real businessmen and real businesses. The investment is zero. Like the
Yeah.
investment is literally zero. I can't stress that enough to people. Like, and I'll go back to my original question. Like, why do we do this to ourselves?
Mm.
So it's a conversation to be had. I feel like I have a lot of things to say on this topic, just because I am someone who's been through the job search struggle, and then client search struggle until I've actually started building online. The second I did, I'm telling you, it took me 4 months before 4 or 5. Hopefully I'm saying it right. 4 or 5. Let me do 5, just so I could be a bit more um, correct. It took me 5 months to get booked out for the entire year. Immediately, that particular year, when I started posting, I immediately got booked out with projects. And at that point, I knew this is something worth doing. And at that point, I had like 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. It was nothing compared to where I am today. And I knew that that was the right move. I knew that that was the right investment of my time into the future, and I just doubled down. And today, many, many months and years later, we are, you know, we're controlling, I want to say, how we do work, who we want to work with, and we're helping others do the same, because it is so saddening to me to see people let time pass and not build anything around their name, not a brand, not interest, not any reputation. It's saddening, and I don't want to feel sad about talking about this thing. I really want to be happy, and I'm genuinely doing my best in my content and on my LinkedIn profile to help others and really push the needle for a lot of people around the world. So yeah, that's my rant. I
Awesome.
did this feel like a rant, by the way, or did this feel like a like an actual,
Uh,
I
for
don't know
me,
what to call it,
for me,
monologue?
it's inspirational, valuable
Thank you.
bombs. So you lead me to an emergency room. I need to think about my strategy, because I see when people misunderstand LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not like for searching job or
It
submitting
used to
your.
be though. Like that's
Yeah,
where the you know misconception comes from.
yeah.
LinkedIn was only for jobs in the past, basically. And
Today
now
it's social
people think they
media,
can, yeah,
multifunctional social media. You can post content, you can market your business, you can do everything what you can do on Facebook, YouTube, and other social media, on
precisely.
LinkedIn. And I wanna start from first step that I see many companies don't understand what to do from profiles, creating accounts, because what I usually see when companies or people create selfish profiles. They don't care about customers, they don't care about users, and I often get the request, please check out my profile, and I see selfish profile. People don't know the customers. They wanna highlight how they are great, but nobody cares. You can become Cristiano Ronaldo, you can be whatever you want, but you need to highlight how you can help others. Can you tell or lead our audience how to do it, how to create profile that can share such value for their audience?
Really good question. So, if you want to create a brand that helps people, ultimately it's about trust. I always say this. Trust is the foundation of investment. Why do you buy certain products? Because you trust that they will fix whatever you need, getting fixed. Why do you buy certain food? Because you trust that it's good for you and you trust that it's going to taste great. Why do you invest in coaches, in services? Because you trust that you will get the result that you seek. You will fix something in your life, or at least it will make you feel better about your life. Trust is the ultimate currency. So, if you want to build a brand, especially online, especially on LinkedIn, that is based on trust, you have to show people they can trust you. Here's how to do that: share content that is educational, but also applicable. A lot of people on LinkedIn, a lot of LinkedIn creators, they cover the first part. They'll say all the right things, but they'll miss the second part, which is the applicability part. Here's what that means in the real world. If you give me advice like, oh, if you want your LinkedIn brand to work, you need to, and then you give me a list. Number one, optimize your profile, write content that sells, expand your professional network. If you do all of these three, your LinkedIn will be the star of the show. You will thank yourself 3 years later. Okay. There's nothing wrong with what has just been said. Nothing. Optimize your profile, create content that sells, expand your professional network. All of these things are super positive and they're correct. The problem is, what can I do with those three sentences? How can I apply those three sentences in my life? What the heck does it mean? Optimize your profile. How do I optimize my profile? Right? Like, I can't apply that sentence. I can't apply that advice. It's educational, sure, but I can't do anything with it. Absolutely nothing. Second one, write content that sells. How? How the heck do I write content that sells? Right? Again, it's educational, it's positive, but I can't apply it. Third example, expand your professional network. Sure, I will, but how? The applicability factor is missing from a lot of LinkedIn content. And if you want people to trust you, you need to prove to them that whatever you say to them can be applied right away. My rule, my definition of right away is 10 seconds later. So I have this very unique approach on LinkedIn where I try to break down the most complex topics into the simplest steps and simplest, words, terms, communication. What that does is it creates this effect where as soon as you read something, you can apply it legitimately seconds after. You don't need to Google certain, solutions. You don't need to Google certain answers. No, everything that I have given you, the list that I have given you, has all the answers. You don't need to go outside of my profile to find the answers. Everything is right there. So if I tell you if you want to do LinkedIn right, you need to do one, two, three. I'm actually going to give you the roadmap, the steps to one, and then to two, and then to three. I'm actually going to give you a mini masterclass in the post. of how you can optimize your profile. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to pay attention on, what parts to write, the character count, how to write it, what sort of phrases, maybe a template you can repurpose for yourself. If you want to expand your network, I'm going to tell you exactly how to approach people, when to DM people, if you should DM people at all, how you can build familiarity, step by step, step by step. Now, when you read that post, you can immediately apply it. You're no longer stuck with, oh, yeah, that was cool, but how? You know how. And as soon as you apply it, you're going to see that it actually works. Now, in that point in time, when people can witness that what you have told them actually works for them, this is the point in time, like a very specific, pin when trust is built. And as soon as people trust you, they are willing to do a plethora of things for you. They're willing to come back to your profile every single day, meaning the word follower actually means they're following you for your advice because they trust you. Then they're also willing to recommend you to other people. This is the beauty of a network. A network is nothing if they don't trust you themselves. If they're not going to mention your name in a room full of other people, that's not a network. That's just list, of names,
Yeah.
whatever. That's not a network. And also, they're going to be clients, customers, buyers, basically supporters of your business, which is vastly different from the previous two, because the third group will give you their money. The third group will be like, I trust you enough for me to pay you and for you to help me, because I trust, based on all this content that you've already delivered for me for free, mind you, for free. And I had already had so many amazing results with the free content. I am actually willing to pay to to get some amazing, amazing advice that no one else is getting. Or at least I'm going to get advice that is highly applicable to me, because that's ultimately what people are paying for. They're paying you to help them, and not necessarily thousands or millions of people who are kind of similar to them. So yeah, trust. Trust is really the ultimate game on LinkedIn. Um, in order for you to build it, you just got to have faith in your experience, number one, and then write content that sells. So yeah,
Yeah.
we can definitely dive into all of these points, but I hope the distinction between educational content versus applicable content is clear to whoever's listening, because there's truly a huge difference.
Awesome. Yeah, I think trust is important everywhere, on Google, on Facebook. If you can't bring trust, customers don't buy from you. And according to data, 95% of customers check out products before buying. Reviews, different insights. So yeah, you need to bring this trust, to provoke the feeling of trust. I want to ask about creating content. You mentioned about creating content, and when I can listen to you, I get your voice, clear, great voice. But you mentioned you have copywriting background experience, and I think you can create video content, to write posts, social media posts. You can film video because of voice, because of writing experience, and so different formats. But I know it's not the same with my audience. It's not the same even with me, because, for example, I like to write, and when someone can tell me, please tell the best practices, I don't care about best practices. I don't care, because if best practices can tell you need to film, but I'm not good with that, why I need to film? Seth Godin or I don't know, Stephen King, they don't create content, video content, because they are great with writing. They can win audience with writing great pieces of content. You mentioned you have writing experience. Tell your methods how to win this organic reach on LinkedIn.
Yeah. By the way, the same story you mentioned with creating video content, I have never posted a video on LinkedIn ever. I'm very much, a writer. I like to write. The most I'll go is I'll attach a photo to the post, and that photo might be relevant to the post itself. Like if I had just been on a podcast and I am, listing out the topics, or at least the really big messages I've shared in that podcast,
Mhm.
it only makes sense for me to share, a pic from the podcast. But if I'm sharing like a completely random photo, it won't be the same effect. So that's a great point about sticking to your guns, as they say, and sticking to what you actually know. So I am not the best video person. I love doing video for other people. Like I love joining podcasts. I love launching events and being on them. But as far as posting video content, to me, it's a whole different ball game. One that I'm, not yet ready to play. I am getting educated. I am learning a lot about it. And I have recorded videos, a lot of them, but I still haven't posted just because I'm waiting for it to meet my standards. Like I am genuinely my own biggest critic. Now back to your point. Sorry. So if we're talking about you using your greatest skill, you just need to ask yourself, what is your greatest skill? Mine is writing. I am 100% certain that I am a good writer. And I know that ultimately good writing means good communication, and good communication means sales. Because if you can't clearly communicate what you do, people are not even going to understand you. So when it comes to writing on LinkedIn, the thing we have to understand is not everyone is a native English speaker. I am not a native English speaker. So it's different for me to write something online and for it to still hit its mark versus a native English speaker. Just from that perspective. Were you born with it? Were you not? That's A. So it's different for a lot of people. But the thing is, all writing is 90% psychology. So ultimately, all you have to understand about writing is how people think. And there's this book that gives the answer to this question: how do people think? The book is called Don't Make Them Think. That
Mhm.
is the ultimate weapon you can use in your LinkedIn written content. Here's where it becomes a bit more apparent about what this means in practice. So, a lot of folks will complain about, I'll just give you one very random example, but it's specific. A lot of folks will complain about lack of engagement or lack of comments on their posts. Why am I not getting enough comments? Why am I not getting enough responses from people? Why is nobody writing underneath my posts? And then I ask them, well, did you even ask them to comment? And then they look at me like, what do you mean? Did I like tell them comment below? No, no, no. I mean, did you even provoke a conversation with your post? You may have just told people, hey, water is transparent. You should drink it. Okay. Okay. Like that's my response. But I'm not going to comment anything below your post. But if you had only asked me, how much water per day do you drink? All of a sudden, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
See, it's a very simple psychological trigger to ask simple questions with instant responses. But that word is the key word: instant. Now, in a different example, people will invite comments, but they'll ask very complicated questions. Version A is where people don't even ask questions. They don't invite comments. They don't invite people to engage. Version B is where people do actually do that, but they do it in a completely complicated way. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I have just written a post about how I was discriminated on my job, on my past job. I was punched by my boss just because he disliked the fact that I came from a different country, from a different continent, and our, you know, thinking kind of wasn't aligned, and we got into a fight. He punched me. Now, if you were to ask me the question at the very end of that post that says, so what's your biggest failure story? At face value, okay, there's nothing wrong with that question. But let me just explain to you the psychology behind a bad question versus a good question. So the question at hand is, so what's your biggest failure story? I have to think about the answer. The answer is not instant by any means. I literally have to stop and think for 30 seconds, for 2 minutes about the response to that question, just because it is so deep and it is something that's not instant for any person to respond to. Part two of that problem is As soon as I have figured out what my answer is, oh, I now know what my biggest failure story is. Now I have to comment underneath that post. And I need to write an essay about what my biggest failure story was. No one has time to write an essay. No one is here to read your post only. People are using LinkedIn where they're scrolling and they just want to, dish out that quick value in the comments. They're not going to spend 5 or 10 minutes on your post only. So the book that says don't make them think, it's actually one of the foundational psychological principles in writing. If I have to think of a response to your post, that means you're not going to get that engagement from me. I'm going to drift away. I got better stuff to do. And if you are asking for me to devote 5 minutes of my time just to write a comment underneath your post, I'm not doing it. Now, version 2 of that same post, being hit by a boss, discrimination, and then I asked the question, were you ever discriminated on your job? Yes or no? A simple question, a simple answer. Yes or no? But here's the thing, here's the psychological trigger. As soon as you say yes, or as soon as you say no, your answer was instant. You didn't think. But as soon as you said yes, you're going to start commenting immediately about what that means because you didn't spend 20, 30 seconds or 2 minutes thinking about the answer. You immediately knew just because the question was phrased differently. The question was phrased differently. So here's my psychology for asking really good questions at the end of posts. You need to ask questions that have instant responses, or for the lack of a better word, very short responses, something that's up to 8 words. Number 2 is you need to ask yes or no questions because those are also instant. But as soon as people say yes, they're going to be prompted to give you the full story. They're not just going to comment yes because that means nothing. They're actually going to want to comment underneath that post. And number 3 is ask questions that require numbers as a response. Let's say I was talking to you about in my post, let's say I was talking about a commenting strategy, like how many comments I leave per day on LinkedIn, or how much time I spend, or how I do them, any number of things. And then my question at the very end would be, how many comments per day do you leave? As simple as that. Again, instant response because you already know the answer because I'm not making you think. That's the
Awesome.
key to everything. And then that whole psychology applies to the entire post. Obviously, I've just talked about the ending of a post, but the psychology applies to the beginning, the hook. If you're not telling me what the post is about, I will never click that see more button, right? We all see that see more button, the one that shows us the entire post, not just the preview. Or if I'm in the middle of reading your post and then I still have no clue what you're talking about. I literally just read to half your post and I still have no clue what you're talking about. Again, that rule, don't make them think. It's the foundation of everything. So hope this helps someone. Hope this is applicable.
100%. Yeah, I checked a lot of your posts. You have high engagement, a lot of likes, comments. You know how to provoke, and I learn your style. You use
Thank you.
bullet points. You can use one sentence in one paragraph and empty row between them, so it can help to increase readability. Can you tell how it's important to think about readability, about using bullet points, about using personal pictures, photos, because I see you share a lot of your photos, even if post is about something different, but you can, does it help to win this engagement?
So if we're talking about the format of writing on LinkedIn or the format of your posts, let's say I'm just going to stick to text only in this example. This same exact advice I'm going to give you can apply to image posts as well. Basically, a photo and then text above it. Formatting is really the key to everything. Just because, again, human psychology, and we're going to stick to psychology for a bit here. human brains do not read text first. We don't read it immediately. When you see a billboard in front of you, when you see a LinkedIn post in front of you, as you're scrolling through your feed and then you notice something, you don't immediately read. Actually, your brain doesn't immediately read it. What it does is it scans the the entire post, or at least what it sees. Now, what that does is it sends a signal to the human brain that says this post is easy to read, the readability is good and simple, or it's the opposite. This post is not easy to read. Therefore, I'm going to keep scrolling. But what are the triggers for that signal? So the triggers are white space, meaning empty lines. If you have chunks of text, meaning paragraphs that are like 4, 5, 6 lines long, that's not a good signal for the human brain. You want to know why? Because no one's on LinkedIn to read books. No one's on LinkedIn to read essays. People are going to open up a book if they actually want to read a book. But
Yeah.
no one jumps on LinkedIn to read books or research papers. If you want to read a research paper, again, you're going to go specifically to where research papers are. LinkedIn is for educational content that is quick to consume and quick to apply. And if your text visually doesn't convey that same message, it's going to fail. People are not, at least the majority of people, you're still going to get people who don't care. They're going to read essays. But the majority of people on this planet, they need to get this visual signal from text that tells them this is easy to read or this is not easy to read. White space, a huge thing. Short lines and short sentences, huge thing. If you are one of those people who can talk on and on and on, and you can just add a comma everywhere, and you can just add a full stop after only like 500 characters and whatever, I'm literally demonstrating what that means. I'm just talking on and on and on and on. I'm not stopping. If you're one of those people whose sentences never stop, you're doing it wrong. My rule in copywriting is if there's too much copy, make it choppy. Literally, if you have a pretty long sentence, chop it up into multiple sentences, 2 sentences, 3 sentences, 4 if you can. You can even do this in the same exact line where you can have multiple sentences in just one line, 2 to 3 words. That's enough for one sentence on LinkedIn. So chopping it up, not going super broad, using a lot of white space, using lists. Now, lists for me are a key thing because they signify that something has a point A and something has a point Z. Lists are psychologically designed to tell you that there is a beginning and there is an end. If you don't trust me, and I'm just going to give you this challenge to whoever's listening, if you have a list of 7 steps, okay, 7 steps, literally step 1 of a process and step 7 of a process, write that same list with numbers and without numbers. Tell me which list looks more valuable or which list looks more appealing to read. It's 100% the one with numbers. Again, psychologically, it just tells us there's a beginning and there's an end. It also tells us there is a journey that I'm going to go on. I'm going to learn the first step, I'm going to learn the last step, or at least I'm going to learn the first thing and I'm going to learn a 7th thing. But without those numbers, we don't get any of these cues, any of these visual signals. We are just seeing a list that's super long. We don't know that it's a journey. We don't know that these are steps. We don't know that it's a process. We literally just don't know. And all it takes is numbers. So psychology and these visual cues they're huge in writing. I could give you plenty more examples about these psychological triggers in writing, but formatting I talk a lot about formatting on LinkedIn. So obviously I'm very passionate about this topic and people know me for my formatting.
Awesome.
It is huge. It is huge in writing because ultimately what you want to do is write something that's easy to read. And I always say my principle in writing is if it's easy to read, it will be easy to understand.
Yeah,
Because
nice.
just take the opposite version of that. If it's easy to read but not easy to understand, that makes no sense.
Awesome. Yeah, I
You know,
love it. Love it. You know, I want to ask about improving skills. How, for example, if someone can use all your insights, all your tips, I, it's it's tough from scratch. And I often see when content creators can't get results for a long time, like 6 months without results, without engagement, likes, comments, almost nothing. But can you tell about consistency and patience? For example, Mr. Beast, when he started to post content on YouTube, he spent like 18 months to get 1,000 subscribers, but he didn't give up. Today everyone knows Mr. Beast. Once I got the message from Bridget Hyson. Um, she has plus 4 million followers on LinkedIn, and she asked me about what's going on with algorithms. I was surprised. She has 4 million followers and asked me what's going on. I shared my thoughts about that because algorithms, like any other social media, can change. LinkedIn can change algorithms. That's okay. It's part of the job. We need to adapt to think. And I think the best advice I can give to anybody else, just be yourself, think about users, because all algorithms work for users, for human beings. If you can help them, you can win. It doesn't matter what's going on in any platform. But can you tell about patience and consistency? Because I see when people confuse consistency with frequency. You can post every single day, you can skip some days, it works for you. So tell your methods of consistency and how to be patient if you have no results for a long time.
Okay, so consistency versus frequency. To me, they're a totally different thing. And I preach about this on my LinkedIn. People often ask me about how often should I be posting on LinkedIn? That's that question is bound to drive you into the deepest abyss of despair and doom and self-doubt and imposter syndrome. You want to know why? Because you're equating consistency with a certain number of days, a certain number of hours, and whatever. The real answer is do whatever works for you and then stick to it. Do not just apply the advice where someone else has said, oh, 7 days per week, posting 7 days per week has worked for me. If it's worked for them, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you
Yeah.
because you might not be able to be posting 7 days per week. I have actually, fun fact, I have never posted 7 days per week on LinkedIn. And people are so surprised when they hear that, just because at this point, we are where we are with the follower count and with the engagement and everything. People are so surprised to hear that. But that's only because I understood consistency doesn't mean every day. Being consistent does not mean every day. You could be posting 2 or 3 times per week. But if you stick to that schedule, let's say you're posting on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you stick to that schedule week per week per week, no one's going to notice the missing Tuesdays and Thursdays. No one. Just because you keep showing up and you've never disappeared. That's what consistency is. You keep doing it, but at a rate and tempo that works for you. Now, throughout your journey, that rate, that tempo might change. I know in the beginning, I was posting 4 or 5 times per week. Then I slowed down because I noticed I was posting more for quantity than quality. I was trying to hit
Mhm.
this quota. I need to be posting 5 times per week. And I noticed that some of the posts weren't performing well, or some of the posts, like just personally, I did not like them. Like they weren't as good as the others. So I told myself, why am I putting so much focus on quantity? It needs to be about quality. Like, aren't 2 good posts much better than 8 lackluster posts? As frequent as I show up in your feed, if I keep providing posts that are not immense value to you, at a certain point, you're not going to pay attention to me. You're not going to pay attention to what I do. You're not going to see it as valuable. I'm just going to be just another voice in the feed, an echo chamber, no one to be trusted. But if I posted less frequently, but every single time you heard me, you saw my face, you saw my words, you saw my post, every single time it was something next level, something super applicable. See the effect now? So consistency is really about finding that balance of quality versus how many times you can deliver quality.
Yeah.
If that means two days per week, if we're talking LinkedIn posts, so posting 2 days per week, do it, but stick to those 2 days. Stick
Yeah.
to the 2 days. If it means five, do it, but stick to the 5 days. There's also, actually, if you don't mind, there's also a huge thing I need to mention here. That doesn't mean that you should not be using LinkedIn on the other days.
Mhm.
So this is a huge misconception that people have about LinkedIn. And then they also are met with the same, challenge and question, like, why am I not growing? Why are my posts not getting enough reach? Why am I not still experiencing this brand authority or interest that you're talking about? If you're only using the platform 2 days per week, that is a problem because we're talking about posting content. Okay. We're talking about you showing up on your profile and broadcasting to your network. If you want to do it 2 times per week, cool. But you should be showing up every single day. So posting versus showing up, these are two completely different things. On LinkedIn, showing up through commenting and showing up for other people, I would say is about 90% of the work. 10% is the posting and all the other stuff. 90% of your LinkedIn effort should be around commenting. I've always done this. I've always preached about this. I've always coached people on this. It hasn't changed. The algorithm has seen many changes. This approach has not changed one bit. Commenting is the ultimate growth hack on LinkedIn. If you are posting only 2 days per week and you are posting something mega valuable, the weird part is people are only going to be seeing you 2 times this week, literally 2 times. They're going to see you, let's say, on Monday, and then they're going to see you on Thursday. They're not going to see you until, the next 3 days and the next 3 days and the next 3 days. But if you're leaving super valuable comments on other people's posts 10, 20, 50 times per day, outside of posting, what's going to happen is people are going to see you 10, 20, 50 times per day. That is a
Yeah.
massive difference from just two every 3 days or just once every 3 days. It is massive. What commenting can do for you and your brand is increase your brand awareness because posts by themselves can't do that for you. Go out there, go comment underneath people's posts, go comment on people's comments. So do not just write one comment. No, actually go scroll through the comment section of one post and find two, three, five people whose comments you really liked and people who are like your target clients or people you just want to network with. Comment on their replies. Sorry, reply to their comments. Write something that prompts them to speak to you or that just shows them this person cares about me. This person is here because they're interested in what I have to say. I've done this for years and my results have been amazing. I've coached people on how to do it right. Other people's results have been amazing.
Mhm.
Commenting is the ultimate growth strategy on LinkedIn, and it is
Awesome.
something that you should be applying every day. But
Uh,
posting is something where you pick the consistency that suits for you, and yeah, just focus on the quality there as well. Even with the comments, I mean, it's still all about
of course.
quality. It's not necessarily about quantity. It's just that it's much more noticeable with comments. That's
Yeah.
the big difference, I'd say.
Uh, I couldn't agree more. And I wanna share how many times once I commented. That was 400 times. I used the strategy to grow my LinkedIn account, and I commented 400 times. And when I share with someone, you need to comment a lot and get reply. What I can say? What to comment? I don't know. Just read the post and bring more value to this post. Don't criticize. Don't tell something wrong. Just bring more value. Praise other efforts. If you people love it, all content creators love it, and I started to comment like 5 times a day, 10 times a day, and I increased, improved, increased. Of course, I cared a lot about quality. Today, I don't do it because it's not. I don't want to do it. I have other priorities. They bring a lot of money. I need to handle a few businesses, but if I have no these businesses, I I will comment a lot again. So I think it depends on your priorities, but commenting is a powerful tool, but the best tool that bring greatest result that I got in my life. So yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I have a lot of questions to you, but I'm going to follow you on LinkedIn to learn more about you, to get replies to my questions. I do it and recommend to anyone to follow Jasmine on the LinkedIn to keep learning. But I have my final question, very important question. Um, what I found, uh, if my clients understand what I do, we usually get great results. I cooperate with big clients who can pay great money. And I stick with a few clients who can pay a lot than to handle 100 clients to bring less value. And what I found, we usually get great results with clients who understand everything, almost why we need to create high quality content, why to think about traffic value than getting more traffic, why we need to think about sharing trust, authority, to bring real experience, storytelling, than just to write for the sake of having it. Many different insights. I want to ask you, if you started today from scratch without any experience, knowledge, skills, it's your first day, you just register your LinkedIn account, you have zero followers, zero connections, but you wanna grow in one day to become an expert in this niche. What will you do if you started from scratch?
So if I had to start from scratch on LinkedIn, from zero followers, zero
Yeah.
posts, zero everything.
Just register today.
If I just registered my profile today on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, here's what I would do. And it's funny because just 2 days, I helped someone rebrand from scratch, like quite literally from scratch, basically from zero. We did two things because those two things are the most important things on your LinkedIn. Number one is not the posts, not the writing, it's the profile.
Mhm.
Your profile needs to be super clear about what you do and who you do it for. When you communicate clearly what you do, meaning what sort of problem you solve, what sort of benefit you bring, but then also you communicate the part that says for whom, meaning you're speaking directly to your target audience. What's going to happen is every single time someone visits your profile, they're going to see whether you can help them directly or not. But if your profile is more along the lines of, hey, I work here, I do this, that's not really as inspiring. Hey, I'm the founder of Cup Consulting. That doesn't tell me what you do. That doesn't tell me if you can help me. That doesn't tell me if you're actually for me or not. But if you tell me, I help do XYZ for XYZ audience, and you also communicate some of the results that you're able to do, let's say in the profile banner on your LinkedIn profile, every single time a person of interest, someone who is your ICP, your ideal customer persona, if they visit your profile, they're going to know exactly what you're all about. And this has nothing to do with follower count. Let's say you had 0 followers, but then you left 10 comments and then 10 people visited your profile. Out of those 10 people, one of them might be your ideal client. So if you're speaking directly to them, your profile is going to convert. Whether you have 0, 10 followers, or 10,000 or 110,000, it doesn't matter. Clarity on your profile is the number one thing I would invest time if I had to start from zero on LinkedIn. Now, in unison with that, in combination with that, the second thing I would be investing a hell of a lot of time on is comments. Because at the very beginning, even though you're writing, you should be writing, by the way, you should be writing consistently, you should be publishing posts. The thing is, because you don't have a large follower base, you don't have a whole lot of connections, your posts are not going to get that much reach just because there's no one in your network, right? So what you do is you go out there and build your network. You go out there and leave comments on other people's profiles. And again, this is why I said even earlier in the show, 90% of all of your LinkedIn efforts should be commenting. And that is so true since day one to day 1000. It is the same exact tactic. You being out there in other people's worlds, in other people's networks, is the best thing you can do for your brand because it brings brand awareness, it brings interest, and it brings brand authority down the line. But then the magical thing is when people see all of that, they see your dozens or hundreds of comments in your case per day and they click on your profile and it still clearly communicates to them, that's when the magic happens. So you've already generated, awareness and a certain level of trust through the comments. But when people finally land on your profile and they see that you can actually help them, that's when the conversion happens. That's when they actually want to pay you. And I'll give you the example of an opposite thing that happens. If you skip the profile optimization part, if you keep your profile non directed to any particular person, with any particular problem, with any particular solution that you're offering, you could have the most viral posts ever. And I've seen this happen because I've worked with a lot of big creators on LinkedIn where they've just spent, a certain time on the platform, but they've never themselves actually invested time in optimizing their profile because at that point they were like, yeah, sure, I'm going to monetize down the line. But then they noticed that their posts were getting a whole lot of traction. And what happened was they've gained hundreds of thousands of followers overnight. Overnight. But what happened was they couldn't convert any of them because those
Yeah,
followers didn't have a clue about what you could offer and who is it
yeah,
for. So this is why the profile part is actually the most important part. But commenting is how you bring attention to your profile. So these two things need to work in unison. And obviously, after you've built a certain level of followers, you should definitely be posting content for that network because then that network is going to bring you to a new network and so forth. So you're not just going to have commenting as a strategy, you're also going to have posts as a strategy. It's a whole thing. You need to do all of these things very strategically. But yeah, profile is definitely number one. Commenting is a heck of a number two.
got it. Yeah, thank you so much. It's a big pleasure to get on my show to learn from you. I'm going to follow you on LinkedIn to get more valuable insights. Tell the best way how to keep learning from you, how to reach out to you, how to cooperate with you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the invite. As you can see, I'm pretty passionate about this topic, LinkedIn,
Yeah,
psychology, writing, all this, just because it is something I do on a daily basis. I work with a lot of people. I coach a lot of people. I help a lot of people. And I'm always passionate to talk even more about it. So thank you for the invite, man. And yeah, whoever wants to learn more, or they want to contact me, work with me, my LinkedIn is the quickest address.
awesome, guys. You can find the link to LinkedIn account in the description below. Listen us on Apple, Google, Spotify. Thanks again. Love it, Jasmine. It's a big pleasure. I
My
love to
pleasure.
learn a lot
Pleasure's all
more
mine, man.
about LinkedIn. And it doesn't matter. You can listen to this episode and use totally the same to any social media. It works everywhere. You need to love what you do. You need to enjoy the process. If you enjoy, it works on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, everywhere. Even on TikTok, you can create content and comment. I know some influencers who comment a lot and get great results. So, yeah, of course, you need to create content, but commenting is a powerful tool. Crafting your profile, yeah, it's very important. Okay, thank you guys for listening and watching us.